Hi there, everyone. This is Alexandra Corey-Toru, and this is a presentation on my behavioral analyst biography on Judah Axe. As you can see, he's an associate professor of education, and he works at Simmons College. He is resonating with me since I've been reading a lot of his articles about applied behavior analysis, verbal behavior, and just challenging behavior and all. His articles really resonate with me, which I'm going to describe three of them for you. One of his most kind of influential impacts in the field is the effects of pre-session pairing. So as you can see here, you have three students. We have Ariel, Jonah, and Susanna, and they are Ariel is 9 years old, Jonah and Susanna are 11 years old, and these are children with uh, different spectrums of autism. And of course, they have challenging behaviors. So as you can see, the baseline is the initial where we first started with the kids. I'm saying we, where Jonah and the other researchers who participated in this experiment observation of where they started. And you can see that they were quite high as a baseline as they were trying to use escapism or just trying not to be involved in the lesson without being prepared for it. But as Judah Axe had put it, pre-session pairing is where the teacher will pull the student aside for just 2 to 3 minutes, prep them for what is about to happen in the session, in the instructional session that happens with everyone, and then put the child back into the general setting and then explain it all once again. I actually found this really interesting because I actually do this, but I do this with all of my kids. I don't teach children with disabilities. Judah's talking more about children with autism. I don't teach that either. I've had experience with children with disabilities in my classroom, and I think from there I just took on that I have to do a pre-session with just everyone. And I want them to really comprehend the information before we start an activity. So that was a really interesting um, article that I found. The next, one of my favorite articles, my second favorite article, is about matrix training. Matrix training is where you are teaching something directly and in the hopes that it'll also be teaching something indirectly. So you can see the chart here of how training goes and the actions and the pictures that are associated. So in the grand scheme of things, if you're teaching, for example, a child should identify a blue car and a red boat, with the indirect training and with this method is that the child will also reverse them and say blue car, red boat. Hopefully I got those right. Um, so this study was really interesting because the kids learned a lot from this training and from the short amount of response time that they had. They had up to 5 seconds to respond and to associate each uh, picture with its action. And if they weren't, then they were given an extra 10 seconds. And then if not, they would just move on to the next. And this study took a few weeks. And at the end of it all, these students progressed so much more in the indirect training of it all, which was just amazing to see how much you can actually teach and then how much is indirectly taught. The next article also resonates with me a lot. I'm just going to quickly scroll up. It is the Comprehensive Inclusion Program for kindergarten children with autism spectrum disorder. And so this one pretty much tell Judah and all the other writers tell teachers and everyone else who is in charge of an IEP plan that children should stay in the least resistant um, learning environment, and that they should stay in the classroom to learn from their peers because they will learn better that way. And so you can see at the end that the findings are consistent with reports of success for inclusion programs for preschoolers with autism spectrum disorder. Um, I really liked this one because the authors gave a model of what they expected. And this is kind of a model that I use and I recommend as a teacher. I can't always tell everyone to be in full day programming, but I recommend that the kids come at the most opportunistic time of our learning day and learn as much as they can. Of course, the inclusion part of it all, where they aren't separated from the classroom to do their to do additional work. The general education curriculum, that it should be as accessible as possible to everyone, and that evidence-based strategies of how to implement all of the teaching strategies, and then behavior management and teacher training. These are huge because you have to training is important, especially for teachers to understand what is going on and how to effectively be a great teacher and make information accessible. So these were the three topics that really hit home with me. And I had some really great questions for Mr. Axe had I ever meet him, or if I were to ever meet him. But I liked all of my questions. I know we're supposed to pick up to five, but I just couldn't actually stop myself. But what really wanted to ask him was question four of what was a strategy that you were working on that didn't get approved, but you were really pushing for. Had it been approved and seen the light of day in the classroom, do you think now looking back that it would have been effective, or would you have regretted pushing it and seeing it belly flop? So that's a thing I've been curious about this whole time, because a lot of special education to me and teaching is kind of just a trial and error. See if it works, and if it doesn't, there are plenty more other strategies to do. And I think that Judah Axe's work is important because he brings freshness, and he literally gives every detail of the process, so that if you were to use the matrix training or the pre-session pairing or have the inclusion in the classroom, his articles give you everything. And I was honestly using these before I had even known about this biographer or about this analyst. And I'm actually impressed that I picked him and that I was able to correlate and resonate with him. So that is a little bit about my biography. Thanks for listening.